Welcome into NFL Daily. I am Tom Downey, producer Chris Daughtry, behind the scenes for today's live show. Week 3 is over. We're now getting set up for Week 4 with you had 2 Monday Night Football games. Now you get a Thursday Night Football game. It is the Cowboys and the Giants, and boy, the noise is going to get damn loud around Dallas if the Cowboys don't take care of business against a team they're normally supposed to take care of business of. Who you got in this one? C for the Cowboys, G for the Giants. This is also the pinned poll on today's show. 67%, 2 away from nice, voting in favor of the Cowboys. Still very early, and we'll probably see that number fluctuate pretty heavily. Dallas favorite. That line's actually jumped to 5.5 now, by the way. I saw it as low as 4 at one point. It is now up to the 5.5 line, which I don't know if that's money coming in on the Cowboys. The Giants have some injuries at corner, like Drew Phillips, that has raised some concerns there. But who you got? C for the Cowboys, G for the G-Men. We'll give some shout-outs here on today's show as well. Shelly and Bob both voting in their C. By the way, Raider Dave 84 wants to fire Luke Getsy. Can't say I blame you. Shard says G. He's a Cowboys fan, by the way. Going with the Giants. Sir Bilgy Grimm, at least I assume the SR is Sir. Maybe it's Senior. I don't know. C for the Cowboys. Jeffrey for the C. Tar Heel Cowboys got C. Guess who he cheers for. Sorry about your Tar Heels, by the way. That's been a bit of a rough go. That was... You probably should have fired Mac Brown for that game. I get you hadn't lost all year. You got shellacked by James Madison. That can't happen. Eli says C. Sam Jackson says G. And Lore says C. So keep the votes coming here. Down to 64% in the pinned poll voting for the Cowboys. Sam Jackson says, if I did mention, says G. Now, we'll talk about Davante Adams. And if you're a Raiders fan, you want to tune out for like a minute, I get it. I'm not really buying it, but it is a very popular topic, and we will talk about what the people are talking about. Will the Raiders trade Davante Adams, as I somehow merge whatever Ratters is, and also Jamal Adams, which is the wrong player. Y for yes, N for no. I guess I'm thinking Adams trade on my mind, and that's happened before too, right? I have my doubts. There's conversations to be had, but I think it's more of a other fan bases would love to get him. Like the Jets are pining after him still because they're desperate. Y or N in the comments. Sarge says they're not, but they should. Jeffrey says no. Raider Dave says no, but he hopes so. Lore says no as well. I have doubts. You trade Davante Adams, you're punting on your season. And at that point, why'd you bother paying Gardner Minshew? They're also already like kind of waffling on the whole Gardner Minshew experience, which this is what you were always going to get. You were going to get extreme volatility. You were going to have the great game once, 2, 3 times, whatever it was a year. You had it against the Ravens, where all his chaotic nature works, and then it doesn't work, and you get what you got last week against the Panthers. So it's just if you wanted consistency, you never should have signed Gardner Minshew. It's not what you're going to get. N for Jeffrey Johnson, N for Clayton Lockhart, N for Tar Heel Cowboy. Raiders have to make a decision next offseason. And I think you'd be okay. You had to if you had to wait to make that decision. So Ecuador man says Renz is going to get me to talk about the Raiders. He's talking about it too, so it's fine. He's talking about the Cowboys too. He'll be live Friday, Thursday night, whatever. Will the Raiders trade Davante Adams? Y for yes, N for no. We will also talk Cowboys today. What is the percent chance that Mike McCarthy is back as the Cowboys head coach in 2025? I think this is a very low figure. I think it's like 5% right now. And that is probably even too high for what it's going to take. It's going to require a miracle run where all of your issues that are not just coaching-based suddenly go away. I think it's pretty damn close to 0. I think it's 5% max. They're cooking you in the chit-chat Slack, Chris. And they're right. They are absolutely right. You can't take it 4 takes. Jesus. 0.55, 15, 10% at best, -69. Nice. .55, 3, 10, 2, negative 25, 10, 10, 3, 0, 0, 100% from Jeffrey. That would not go over well in Cowboys fandom. He's out of a contract. If I had to guess, what guess was before the year, and then it's gotten a little bit worse with the way the games have gone. You don't renew that contract, and he's invited not to return. Which, read between the lines, you got kicked out. 10%, 0, 89%. Jeffrey's right, 3 12-win seasons, and they still didn't extend him. Now he's in a contract year. You're not wrong. That's a good argument to keep somebody. Cowboys didn't care. And now it looks even worse this year. So, red flags galore on that front there. Let's move to, speaking of head coaches, we'll talk about hot seats today. Because I have a guess. Who is the first NFL head coach fired this season? Going to be somebody. Happens every year. Who is the first NFL head coach fired in the 2024 campaign? Who you got here? Because I think it's going to be Doug Peterson. Because the Jags look terrible. They look even worse than Dallas does. They look totally disjointed. They look lost. Look, they don't have confidence. There's a lot of bad stuff going on in Jacksonville. Consistently saying, Press Taylor's good. He's not good. It stands out to me. Doug Peterson, Antonio Pierce. In a normal case, I think Pierce could be higher on this list. But also, they fired a lot of coaches recently. You can't. I don't know if Mark Davis can do the buyout again of a third staff in like 4 years. It's a lot. Zach Taylor, if the Bengals can't make a miracle run, it might be time. Because I guess it's going to be a very popular head coach candidate this offseason. Joe Brady. Guess who works well with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase? Joe Brady. Kevin Stefanski, I think it'd be a huge mistake. It's not his fault Deshaun Watson's bad. He made Joe Flacco work. It tells me it's not a coaching issue. Pierce, Taylor, Peterson, Eberflus, Stefanski. I get that the Niners are in a weird spot, Lore, as they put in Kyle Shanahan, where like it's Super Bowl or failure. There's nothing else because of how close they've been. They've definitely had some coaching personnel losses over the years because they've been so close and so good, but haven't gotten the benefits of winning a championship. If Shanahan got fired, the entire league would be like, wait a minute, you want to come here? Maybe not the entire league, but they'd be all over it. Like substantially all over it. So, all right, if you are ready for us to start today's live show, then like that video. The goal was always a 50% like ratio. We weren't that far away this time, but we still did not get there, so I will not do the freebie shot that we do if we get to the 50% like ratio before I ask for it. So like today's video, as we break down the latest Cowboys rumors and news, we'll do a mailbag as well. 2 ways to get on the show. You can use hashtag NFL, or you can super chat, skip that line altogether. That'll be coming up here in a little bit. We do need the hashtag NFL as part of your question, comment, concern, saying I suck, whatever, because otherwise it just gets buried in the comments and producer Chris can't find it. So I saw at least one come in earlier. I think there were a couple more that I probably just didn't quite see. You have questions, comments, thoughts, now is the time to get them in. Use that hashtag NFL, or you can guarantee you get on via super chat. And we'll run through some NFL head coach hot seat rankings, which is going to get a little bit dicey there. It's a couple teams that maybe don't feel great about their coaching staff. So get those questions in as we get set up for today's live show. Let's talk Davante Adams trade to begin today's NFL Daily. I have real doubts it happens, but there has been a lot of speculation and sometimes hopium from other fan bases here. But the rumors are once again back. ESPN again mentioned it. So it is, being talked about, and we're always going to talk about what people are going to talk about. So do you want Davante Adams trade destinations? A more in-depth look at some potential options with the Raiders, in reality, I think being the number one spot for him for the rest of 2024. If you want that, then share today's video for me. Adams' numbers are kind of sort of down, but not by a significant amount. He's still on pace for, frankly, pretty similar numbers to what he had last year. There's like a 70-yard difference in his pace from this year to what he did last season. But his numbers also dipped in his 17-game campaign in 2023 relative to his 2022 efforts and campaigns there. Hadn't been as good. He had gone to the Raiders to play with Derek Carr, his buddy. Carr gets moved on from after a year. I think in large part, Adams and guys like Max Crosby helped lead to the get rid of Josh McDaniels, which they were right to do because McDaniels was bad. And Adams has made comments for he doesn't want to get traded. He wants to stay with the Raiders. I don't think that type of stuff can and should be overlooked. But other teams, other fan bases would love to find a way to get them. That's why there are already Davante Adams trade odds out there. I think to the surprise of really nobody, the Jets lead the way at minus 2,000. The Chiefs are plus 450, which it's a bad bet. Don't take it. The Raiders are not trading Adams to the Chiefs. They would rather not. They would rather him hold out and never play again than flip him to KC. The Ravens actually could use him, but it's not quite a full-on Ravens move. Same with the Bills, but it is a fun idea. Pittsburgh is linked to every single wide receiver, so I think that certainly does make some sense. The Jets, though, I think pretty clearly stand out as the main option. Although I have my doubts he gets dealt. I think a decision is going to come this offseason when you have to make a call on his contract, but you would almost rather have the ability to keep Adams, and if you have a top 2 pick, go get a new quarterback or whatever you're picking, and have Adams than whatever you get for him via the trade market. So will the Raiders trade Davante Adams? Y for yes, N for no. Let me know in the comment section of the pinned comment, actually, especially if the ad comes here on YouTube. Let's break down some week 3 takeaways. Let's begin with the last one you had probably, which was Jayden Daniels was awesome against the Cincinnati Bengals. He was lights out. In particular, attacking the right side of the field. He didn't look left very often. The Commanders had a game plan to have success against Cincinnati as they continue to just not punt. They don't go backwards. They don't turn the football over. They move the ball fairly effectively. They're an EPA darling in a positive sense. And Daniels had his best stuff against Cincinnati. I still don't love the Cliff Kingsbury design on offense, but to make life easy on your quarterback, he's doing a fantastic job. It is very early. You don't want to anoint or disregard altogether a player after 3 games. But if you are a Commanders fan, you're probably feeling very, very excited. And if I were one, I am not, I would be absolutely drunk off the Kool-Aid because the stuff you've seen so far looks really, really good. Now, you haven't seen great stuff in Chicago out of Caleb Williams. And look, the numbers don't look great. The turnovers have to be ironed out. Make no mistake about that. I will say, I thought going back and watching the All-22 stuff, which I love the filters, makes my life a lot easier to focus on individual things as opposed to like having to scrub through. The All-22, the NFL Pro Premium Plus, whatever it is so much better now. I think there's a lot of better underlying stuff there. I think there are some mistakes from Bears receivers, some stuff that kind of was just bad breaks for Caleb Williams. I don't think the coaching staff is very good. I don't think the offensive line is very good. So the Bears are kind of Bearsing still. But if that can get just semi-smoothed out, there's still a lot of good stuff you've seen out of Caleb Williams. It doesn't show up necessarily in the overall game stats, but I think the underlying stuff, the foundation is good for Caleb Williams. So I would not be panicking on that front yet. But your coaching staff might not be very good. And your offensive line, you didn't address it properly, and you're paying the price for it, which you can't stunt the growth early. That was an issue for Justin Fields, too. Now, today's show is made possible by Z-Biotics. Their pre-alcohol is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. When you drink, the alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It is this byproduct, not dehydration, that's the blame for your rough next day. The pre-alcohol produces an enzyme designed to break this byproduct down. Remember to drink this probiotic before drinking alcohol, drink responsibly, and get a good night's sleep to feel your best tomorrow. With this technology, they will release different products that have nothing to do with alcohol. So stay in the loop and go to zbiotics.com/chatsports. You can also scan the QR code on the screen right now to get 15% off your order when you use code CHATSPORTS at checkout. You can get a subscription with that code so you can stay prepared no matter the time or the occasion. ZBiotics, back with the 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. So head to zbiotics.com/chatsports and use code CHATSPORTS at checkout, 15% off. Big thank you to ZBiotics for sponsoring this episode and our good times. Links in the comments and the description of today's show. Let's stick with our rookie quarterback thing before we get to some negative stuff. Bo Nix, in a very critical moment, showed some real signs of life in an upset win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He looked much more comfortable, much more confident. I think overall you saw a lot of the stuff that you were hoping you were going to see out of Bo Nix. I think that is a very important thing to consider. Now, the downfield passing is still maybe not where you're searching for it to be. You know, he had a little bit more success. He hit some deep shots. He was 2 of 3 beyond 20, 2 of 5 beyond 10. It's a big growth from what it was previously, and those explosive plays really help you out. But you upset the Bucs. Nix looked comfortable, looked confident. I think that was low bar, by far his best game as a QB. That's the stuff you want to see out of a first-year QB as he continues to grow and get better. So I was negative last week to Bo Nix. I will happily give him his flowers this week. Next up on the takeaways, the vibes are bad right now in Dallas. It is a really bad sign when you got players up there like Jordan Lewis and Micah Parsons and Tank Lawrence and Dak Prescott making comments about, yeah, we're not detailed, we're not professional, we're not doing our jobs, we're playing hero ball. And then head coach Mike McCarthy gets asked about that specifically and gets very defensive and dismissive of the question and takes a shot at the reporter like, oh, you practiced that one, which is ironic because your team said you had a bad week of practice. And now you're criticizing someone for practicing, which may or not have even happened. The vibes are bad. They have to beat the Giants, or this season is about to go completely off the rails in Dallas. It is teetering right now. They cannot be better than the allegations this week. Embrace them. You only beat bad teams. Well, go blow out a bad team again. Otherwise, boy, we're going to be talking a lot on Friday. When do you fire Mike McCarthy? Even if he makes the season, I think there's real doubts about Big Mike making it as the head coach in 2025. So what is the percent chance that Mike McCarthy is back as the Cowboys head coach next year? Sound off in the comments of today's show. Number 5 takeaway from week 3, the Jags are in shambles. Look, that loss, which the Jags are lucky there was a second Monday Night Football game for people to go watch instead, because otherwise, everyone would have been watching the entirety of the Bills do whatever they wanted at any point, the Jags having no answers on either side of the football, and frankly having a loss as ugly as any in the Urban Meyer disaster class era. They lost by 37. It's a good Buffalo team. Trevor Lawrence doesn't look confident. He's kind of seeing ghosts out there. You've sunk all this money into the offensive line, the wide receiver core. You need, I think the way this is trending, flush house, clean house. Doug Peterson looks lost. I don't know why he's so attached to Press Taylor. Trent Baalke is not and has never been a good NFL GM. I don't know why he gets so many chances. Doesn't make any sense to me. I am very worried about Jacksonville. They haven't had success since Thanksgiving. It's a long time, and we're almost a full calendar year now. Now, we are getting closer and closer to 381,000 subscribers, so if you haven't already, hit that sub button right now. Some NFL injury news, most of it not great. Javon Hargrave out for at least the regular season. A torn, I just kind of saw the play too. You saw when plays it happened on or happened afterwards. Like, he didn't engage and just like, you could tell he was in pain. It's a critical loss for San Francisco. They don't have great interior defensive line depth. For a team that has been pretty healthy over the past couple of years, the football gods against Los Angeles and California in general are seemingly very unhappy and throwing a lot of injuries that way. There's also more concern over Christian McCaffrey. It is never a good flag when you go overseas to see a specialist for an injury. That's normally like, okay, this is bad. Now, he went to Germany to see an Achilles specialist. I thought they all lived in Greece, but I digress. I don't know what the future looks like for McCaffrey, short term. Maybe you're doing some PRP stuff, which could potentially help. This injury clearly was worse than the Niners let on initially. I don't know when he's going to play again. I don't know how many games McCaffrey gets this year. He sunk a lot of people's fantasy teams because you had to take him number one, right? You were worried about it. How many games does McCaffrey end up playing this year? We shall stick in Los Angeles. The Rams are actually healthy this week. No new injuries. Good for them. Justin Herbert, however, aggravated his high ankle sprain in week 3. Between the plantar fascia, the high ankle sprain, there's some concerns there for Herbert being able to stay upright and healthy. Plus, Joe Alt is now hurt. Bunch of banged up bodies for the Chargers. Trent Brown, the Bengals tackle, out for the year with a torn patellar tendon. You could tell when it happened it was bad. Not to be mean, but he looked like when Peter Griffin gets hurt and he just like bent over himself. Like it was bad. And you knew it immediately. So hopefully he's able to make that full recovery, come back in the near future. But leg injuries for a giant human being are not good because you're putting a lot of pressure on those legs. So hopefully he can make it back for next year. In the meantime, Marius Mims will be the starter. Frank Ragnow, the tough-as-hell Lions center, is going to try to play through a partially torn pec, which just sounds not fun. So we'll see what happens on that front. He might miss some time, but he's going to try to gut through it. We'll see how effective he is, though. Oft-injured Chidobe Awuzie is once again hurt. He is going to go to IR with a groin injury, so that's going to stunt him and keep him out for a little bit there. We still don't, kind of surprised by this, nobody signed Caleb Farley. So maybe you could bring him back, although that might not be a very good option, all things considered. In Carolina, Adam Thielen is going to IR with a hamstring injury, which hamstring and IR is not a phrase you want to hear consistently. That's going to be at least a 4-week absence for the Panthers' number 2 receiver behind Deontay Johnson. Time now for our mailbag. 2 ways to get on the show. Number 1 is to use hashtag NFL. Seen some of those questions in there as well. The second way is just the super chat, which always gets you on there. Use hashtag NFL or super chat to skip the line altogether. We'll get it is basically essential to use the hashtag part. Otherwise, Chris cannot find your question. There's too many questions otherwise. So, DC times Viper, I see your question in there. Clayton, I see yours. Ecuador Man, I see yours, and others that have come in there. If you have questions, comments, opinions, whatever, this is a great time to go about getting them in. Is that weigh in off the top? Okay, you're good. To get those questions in, or comments, or concerns, or just want to vent, it can be therapy hour too if your team's bad, or I told you 2 hour. That all works. Get them in via hashtag NFL. Before we dive into today's NFL mailbag, who is your favorite NFL team? Go ahead and show your support in the comments section of today's show. Let's go to Lore. Can the Niners fix the defense? And why has Kyle never played Chris Conley over Ronnie Bell for the drop ball? Chris Conley just probably isn't that good, if we're being honest. Like, he's bounced around the NFL a lot. That drop ball hurt, though. You're kind of scraping the barrel of your wide receiving room because you're supposed to have Deebo Samuel. You're supposed to have George Kittle out there, who's obviously tight end, but still. You're supposed to have Ricky Pearsall out there. You're kind of into the backup options there. But maybe make a change there. It is concerning that the Niners defense is worse because you put the blame on Steve Wilks. You hired a new DC, and the results have not been as good. You made the comment last week about special teams. Boy, they were pretty bad again. I get Shanahan's an offensive guy. You are the head coach. You have to get your defensive and special team side of the ball in order to. From Skyler, should the Vikings go all in and trade for Hassan Reddick? I don't think Minnesota needs pass rush help right now. Like, they're having a lot of success doing funky stuff with Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel and Dallas Turner, and Pat Jones has 4 sacks and Grenard, I think, has 4 sacks. Like, they're fine among the pass rushers. They don't need help there. Corner, defensive tackle, so it's not all Jerry Tillery. That would intrigue me more. They also, to keep in mind for Minnesota, this was kind of a soft reset. Like, you kind of had to, like, retool things a bunch there. Otherwise, it was just not. It's kind of the mandate from ownership. They've done a pretty good job of that. They're super light on draft picks next season. They're so light. They're probably going to trade down in round 1. They might not be in a position where they think they should go all in, because Sam Darnold's played well. Do you think even with Hassan Reddick, Sam Darnold gets you to, like, the NFC Championship game? I don't think so. The NFC's not that great, but I think you're kind of going all in when you shouldn't be. Even though it's been a great start for Minnesota, I like what I've seen. This is still going to be J.J. McCarthy's team down the line. I'd rather build assets for when he's healthy. From Kevin, how about Russell Wilson to the Dolphins? It's interesting. I think here's the issue you're facing for Miami. I genuinely don't think that they know whether or not Tua's going to be back this year. And if they do know that he's not, you should probably tank. You should probably let your bad quarterbacks play it out, then give up an asset for Russell Wilson, who also just might not be good. He wasn't good last year in Denver. He wasn't looking that great early on in camp for Pittsburgh before the calf injury. Calf injuries tend to linger anyway. It's kind of a concerning one for a quarterback because you can't plant and drive the same way you want to, and can lead to other injuries too. So, like, of your realistic options, I think it's definitely one of the better short-term ones. I just don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze in that particular instance. So, will Russell Wilson start for the Steelers this year? Y for yes, N for no. Go ahead and sound off. Let me know in the comments. Will Russell Wilson start for the Steelers? It's a pinned comment on today's show, too, by the way, so if that ad comes, ignore it. Head down there, go vote. Y for yes, N for no. Ecuador, man, do you think the Cowboys would be in last place by this weekend? That happens if the Cowboys... Background here. We're filming this on our Tuesday live show. So we will know after Thursday Night Football who's in last place in the NFC East. The loser drops to last place. Right now, by virtue of a tie, it's the Giants going into this game. The tiebreakers there. Boy, if the Cowboys drop a game against the Giants, that whole coaching staff is... They're already feeling it. You can tell when Mike McCarthy gets all pissy with media and is very short and just like not... just you can tell he's feeling it a little bit. Boy, it's going to get real noisy, real messy, potentially real quick in Dallas if they cannot beat the Giants. And if they do, well, they still haven't proven that they can beat the good teams, but that's step 2. Clayton Lockhart, we all know the Cat Boy won't pursue him, but what would be a good trade for the Cowboys to get Hassan Reddick? We need the help. I really wonder if both sides of the Hassan Reddick conversation are just too dug in. That they are entrenched, established, locked in to their ways, and Reddick's not going to show up, and the Jets won't trade him because that's admitting a mistake, and Reddick is admitting he's folding. It's ugly up there. Maybe that'll get sorted out. You know, the loss of with the torn Achilles, Jermaine Johnson is a huge one for New York. I think that the Jets would probably say we're not trading him for less than we got him, which they're obviously not going to get that offer. You're right that the Cowboys need help, although Reddick is a D end, not a DT, so you still need both, by the way. But if you're the Cowboys or another team that's maybe kind of shaky right now, should you be blowing assets for a 1-year rental when you're probably just not good enough to make actual noise? Who knows? If you can get, I should say, some NFL rookie jerseys for your favorite teams and players, minus one player, over at chatsports.com/NFL jersey. That link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. That's chatsports.com/NFL jersey. You'll also have a clickable link over there in the corner for the jersey as well. All players, except for Marvin Harrison Jr., all the teams, you can search, filter, etc. Just go to chatsports.com/NFL jersey, and you'll be able to find the one you're searching for. DC times Viper, who is in bigger trouble, Dallas or Cincy? Yes. I think specifically for making the playoffs this year, you can't start 0-3. 6 teams have done it. I think that really puts you in trouble. Now, I think for being better the rest of the way, it might be Dallas. Because Dallas looks really bad, and the Bengals are 3 plays away from being 2-1. You can talk yourself into it's just September. They get a lot better outside of September. I do think that Dallas may be in a better spot for 2025. They're going to have $100 million cap space if they want to. They're going to have it. But both teams this year, boy, you're in trouble. From Austin, why won't the Panthers trade Bryce Young? I will say, I wouldn't necessarily confuse the reports of the Panthers rejecting offers for they won't trade Bryce Young. I would quantify those as they haven't traded Bryce Young yet. Bryce Young is not going to be an option in Carolina long term. This race is over. I can't remember the last time, outside of injury stuff, where a team spent a first overall pick on a quarterback and then benched him 2 games into year 2 and then turned back to him and everything was fixed. Like, that's just not, especially when the backup looked so much better. Now, you get the new quarterback boost that happens fairly frequently. But I think he's gone next year. This year, I think they're going to ride it out because if Dalton goes down, then you can go back to Bryce Young and give him a chance and see what he can do. But you're not going to get a great offer right now. You probably got more availability in the offseason if the quarterback class ends up being not very good. I think he's gone after this year, but I don't think it's going to happen midseason. So where will Bryce Young be playing in 2025? I don't think it's Carolina. As a dynasty owner of Bryce Young, I hope it ends up being somewhere better, but that race might have been run already. Let me know in the comments of today's show. Skyler, Cowboys should hire the Utah football head coach. That is Kyle Whittingham, and they're not going to. Kyle Whittingham, they already have the coach in waiting set up. It's the defensive coordinator. Oh, what's his name? I'm drawing a blank on it, but he's really good. Morgan Scales, that's who it is. Look, Kyle Whittingham is a college football coach. He has coached at the collegiate level his entire career. And he's an NFL player for a little bit. While he was on an NFL team, he also coached very briefly. But he is a college coach. Like, that's who he is. He is a Utah lifer. He's been there since 1994. I am not hiring a 64-year-old defensive-minded head coach who has never coached in the NFL to be my NFL head coach. I think it's a bad fit. Now, other college coaches, sure, maybe, but I think Whittingham is a really great coach. I still think he's an NFL coach. So join our mailbags in the future, of course, by subscribing. Hit that sub button right now. DC times Viper. Who is your favorite to win MVP, Rookie of the Year, and Defensive Player of the Year? Gotta feel like it's Jayden Daniels. It's only 3 games, but I would assume that Daniels is your pretty heavy betting favorite there. And then I think decent odds you can find out there too of, Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harris. I think Caleb Williams can make a bit of a rally for the Rookie of the Year. MVP, I like Josh Allen's chances. Like, they overhauled their personnel. They kind of dumped some big names, and they're winning more games, having more success. That's going to go under the credit of Josh Allen. I would bet a decent amount he ends up being your best bet there for Rookie of the Year. Defensive Player of the Year, I would love to make it Max Crosby because I think he is a monster football player. The Cowboys defense is bad. It's not going to go well for Micah Parsons. Early favorites, TJ Watt, because Steelers defense is getting good. He's their best player. Like a lot of what I've seen from Aiden Hutchinson as well. I think those are some names to keep an eye out for. Steven, will the Browns trade Amari Cooper if they fall apart? Probably not, because they are all in right now. They kind of need to have their assets still there. But if it gets really bad, although maybe you would consider pursuing an option that involves, going out and giving Jameis Winston a chance. But I think that is certainly one you would hold on to and not punt on because you're all in at this point. So name a player who you think ends up getting traded. Let me know in the comments of today's show. Let's talk this one too here. Future note, just like I think if we're ending on one, just keep on that one and skip the one in between. Just because it just makes for a better flow there. I also appreciate Ecuador Man saying Young will be a Cowboy. They'll trade a 4th-round pick for him. It's funny. I like that. Timing does not work out because the Young contract is up before Dax's. But it's funny, and I like it. Top disappointment, teams only this season. Jacksonville and Cincinnati have to be high on that list, right? Got to be high on that list. Cowboys certainly too. Although I think most of us had them at 1 and 2 to begin the season. It's also not the way you thought I was going to get there. Niners probably as well. I think injuries more to blame on that front, but that's certainly a big factor there. Let's see. Cowboys in there. Teams are what I was focused on there. You can definitely do, I knew there were going to be good player answers, but I did want to focus on the teams side of things there. Bengals stand out as well. We'll talk about several of these teams as we discuss some head coach hot seat rankings coming up right now. Tom Downey here for NFL Daily. We are 3 weeks in, and the coaches who are starting to feel the pressure a little bit, starting to become a little bit more obvious. Coaches get fired every year, multiple coaches each year. So before we break down my top 8 hot seat list, how many NFL head coaches end up getting fired this year? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Number 8 on my list, and I would have issues if they did this, but Kevin Stefanski, who's a 2-time coach of the year, by the way, keeps popping up high on hot seat rankings. 11-5 in 2020, 8-9, 7-10, 11-6 in 2023, just the one playoff win, and the Browns look disjointed on offense, and he is an offensive mind. I will say this. I think firing Kevin Stefanski would be a mistake. You messed up going after Deshaun Watson. And you got a bunch of injuries as well that's really impacting your personnel and your ability to have success there. I have seen Stefanski win games with old man Joe Flacco and do an offense that somehow worked. I am far more inclined to focus on the quarterback issue and the head coaching issue when I've seen the head coach have success with not great quarterbacks like Flacco. Number 7, Nick Sirianni. Look, Sirianni kind of falls into a category of another guy we'll get to here in a little bit where, the regular season is great. I think they're going to have success again. I think they win the division. Philadelphia is not afraid to make a decision quickly. They are not afraid to go, hey, you got us to a Super Bowl 2 years ago? Okay. Hasn't worked out since then, bye. They did it with Doug Peterson, who you will see on this list again, which is very fitting there, by the way. I would say this. Sirianni's on the list. He's on the low end of the list unless they start losing games, or check back again later in the season. Check back again in January. In December if it comes to it. The expectations are high in Philly, as they should be, and the trigger is quick. You fired both coordinators last year. That is one of the first steps of the speed run of I'm on the hot seat. It's some ordering of, we're going to bench the quarterback. We fired the OC. We fired the DC. I took over play calling. Those things, those are your red flags of, yeah, you're on the hot seat, bud. Who do you think ends up being the first NFL head coach fired this year? It's the pinned comment on today's show. So if the ad comes on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. Number 6, Antonio Pierce, the Raiders head coach. Now, I would be far more inclined to give him more time, in part because I can't keep flipping out head coaches. The Raiders have done, between the John Gruden firing, the Josh McDaniels disaster class, and now with Pierce, they've fired too many coaches. I also think that you're doing week 3 and you're calling out your players for business decisions and talking about, you're not committed to your quarterback, which all are fine, is kind of the speed run of I'm feeling the pressure in the hot seat. I think you have to give him more time, especially when he's only 3 games in. But man, it can't lose to Carolina, Vegas. Was that Raiders game a flash in the pan, or was it Carolina? We'll know in the next month or so. Number 5, Zach Taylor of the Bengals. Now, there's a troubling trend that you have noticed on this list, no? 2 wins in 2019, 4 wins in 2020, 10 wins in 2020. They made that magical playoff run. They should have won. I don't think it was DPI by Logan Wilson, but I digress. 12 wins in 2022, just 9 last year, and they've made the same mistake again. This Bengals team, it's the definition of insanity. They suck every September. They are a legitimately bottom 5 football team every September. Then the calendar turns, and they're playing catch up and trying to fight and claw their way in because they've blown 2 games. They have lost 2 games. They should have won. They should be 2-1, and they are now playing catch up and facing an improbable statistic. 6 teams in NFL playoff history have made the postseason, Super Bowl era, after starting the year 0-3. That is a 2% chance. You are banking on, again, being an exception. You can't keep doing this. The prime Joe Burrow years, especially when he's healthy, cannot be wasted by bad play calling. A team that apparently doesn't seem ready and locked in to go. All of that can't keep happening. If Taylor can't get the Bengals back on track, you have to consider changes. That includes him. Plus, you can get those Joe Brady rumors fired back up again. Today's show was made possible by BetUS, and they have some odds for you. The first NFL head coach fired odds. Doug Peterson leads the way. I think that is the correct bet. We'll talk about him in a little bit. Mike McCarthy, Brian Daboll, I think Kevin Stefanski's way too high. I think that's a mistake, but I digress. Then Antonio Pierce, talk about Matt Eberflus and more. If you feel confident in one of those guys to get fired first, I already put money on Peterson, go to BetUS at chatsports.com/bet. Will take you right into the site. Use promo code NFLDaily for a 125% deposit bonus, as long as you put down at least 100. That's chatsports.com/bet, promo code NFLDaily. Let's go to number 4, the Giants and Brian Daboll. I am very conflicted overall about Daboll. I think there are some good things and some not good things. And when you don't have the personnel, especially at quarterback, that stuff really shows up. They achieved well beyond their actual talent level in 2022. They went 9-7-1, and I think the organization as a whole got tricked. They weren't as close as they thought they were. And they were bad last year, and they're 1-2 this year. And the reality is, Daniel Jones has never actually been a good NFL QB. People hyped up that 2022 campaign. He wasn't actually that good. He just got lucky and wasn't making as many mistakes because he had some fumbles bounce his way, some dropped interceptions, and then he regressed back to the mean, and this is who he is. So it's tough to blame him for that. That's probably more of a Joe Shane mistake. But there are cracks in the foundation. The Don Martindale relationship between him and Daboll fell apart. And Daboll was not being a great leader, if you believe the reports on it, where he was kind of, blaming Martindale, saying that it was the defense's fault when it clearly wasn't. He took control full-time of the play-calling duties. That is only done by coaches on the hot seat because the results aren't where they want it to be. I think there's a chance if things go sideways, Giants go, you're out of here. And they can maybe bring in Bill Belichick. Big game coming up for both Dable and the guy we'll get to number higher on this list. C for the Cowboys, G for the Giants. A key Thursday night football matchup. Who you got winning in that one? Number 3, the Bears and Matt Eberflus. He saved his job last year. He was very much trending towards getting fired. And they closed the year on a heater. The defense was playing great. And now you're facing down this reality where you are on the verge of making the exact same mistake you've made previously. Your head coach didn't have good results, but you brought him back for one more year, and you paired him with a first-year QB, and the head coach isn't good enough. That's a bad spot to be in because now you're flipping offenses again. You're not setting up Caleb Williams for success. The skill guys are great. The offensive line is not. And the offensive coordinator seems to be in a bit over his head. They don't really seem to know what they want to do. And if you're not a head coach that's a play caller on offense and you're a defensive guy, you can't miss on 2 OC hires. That's how you get fired. That's what the Bears are staring down. Did Chicago make a mistake keeping Matt Eberflus? Y for yes, N for no. Number 2, it's Mike McCarthy. I don't think that McCarthy is maybe around a league average coach, somewhere in that range. Like, he hasn't been the worst NFL head coach, but the results are certainly not where they need to be right now. Like, he won a bunch of games in Green Bay. In almost every other NFL job, 3 straight 12-win seasons, you get an extension. It's not the case right now in Dallas. Now, I do feel like the Cowboys ownership and Jerry Jones have set Mike up for failure. That they did him dirty because they made his team worse and said, go have more success. When I think pretty clearly that's just never going to work. That's not how, that's an unrealistic expectation. But that doesn't excuse McCarthy from his own mistakes. He's made a bunch of them. His teams just look unprepared. His schematics, again, this is not the first time it's happened. Hey, a Mike McCarthy offense looks stale. Not doing the things that your players are best at. I don't think he maximizes his talent. I think he had a lucky run with Aaron Rodgers, frankly. I get major dead man walking vibes. I think he knows it too. Now, we will do head coach replacement videos when these guys end up getting fired, if not on the team channels here on Chat Sports. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/chatsportstv. Number 1 is Doug Peterson. I would argue that loss, prime time, after ownership came out and said this is the best team I've ever assembled. We've spent the money, now go win games. And you get the crap kicked out of you by Buffalo, and your quarterback looks like he's seeing ghosts out there and doesn't look comfortable, and all this other stuff. That's bad. Doug Peterson flamed out in Philadelphia. I thought he got a short on the stick. Maybe I was wrong. You can't be a sub-500 coach in Jacksonville when they've spent money for you. Can't do it. And I think there are some mistakes he's made. Why are you so adamant that you're riding with Press Taylor? He's not good. I don't like the Jags' offensive scheme. The Jags across the board look disjointed. It looks like they haven't had a week of practice far too often. They were really good for a half against Miami, and they've been pretty bad since then. You got to start winning games real quick, or it is going to be I don't think that the Cons are a patient ownership group necessarily. They were thinking about it last season. They got Houston this week, then Indy, then the Bears, then the Patriots. You got to go on a run soon. If you get to November and you got 2 wins, see ya. You are so getting fired. Who you got on Thursday Night Football this week? 66% voting yes, or voting for the Cowboys, and then 34%, hashtag math, voting for the Giants. Who you got? C or G? Cowboys or Giants? Let me know in the comment section of today's show. We will be back again on Sunday for our Week 4 NFL Red Zone watch party. Nick Roloff going to handle that one for you guys. He'll have some fun. You'll see him earlier in the week as well on demand. So make sure you guys are subscribed. Hit that sub button. It's youtube.com/chatsportstv.